Okay. All right, so we updated your books. You can kind of follow along either on the screen or in your books. We're going to start with the overview. And let's see. So the first place I thought I'd start with the changes that happened since last time we met. So we had budget requests of $72,736,826. And you can see the list of changes there. So we'll just run through them quickly. We did receive preliminary budget from Kent County Public Schools, asking for an additional $801,000 over the required funding. Part of the teacher retirement shift did not go through, make it through the legislature, so I was able to take $161,000 out. I received updated health numbers from Jim Miller, and so we were able to revise the health insurance down from.
I'd hate to interrupt you, but what did you say on, what happened with the teacher retirement?
So they had originally proposed to shift, I guess it was 320-some thousand to us.
Originally,
and
it was 161, and then they doubled it.
They doubled it, and then they took the 161 back out.
And then they backed it off.
So I had 438,000 in there last time, and now it's down to 227. So we took that 161,000 out. We thought we were going to get more of the shift than we actually did.
And then there's the SDAT.
So we have to pay 200 and some thousand
Correct.
more than we used to have. to pay.
Correct, that's for SDAT and the teacher pension, those two items together.
The assessment office and
Correct.
contribution, did it end up being 90-10?
Yeah, so it's 277,000 actually between those two things.
That's what was handed down from
Yeah.
the state to us this year, $277,000 worth
Yes.
of additional expenses.
Okay. So the health insurance, we were able to update the preliminary estimate of 17% to 14%. So we took 106,000 out for that. Then the next is a long list of the allocation changes that you made. In total, we ended up taking out $231,000 out of all the allocation out in total. In operating, we had some changes. We were actually, the general services budget is a conglomeration of several departments, so we realized some dollars were missing there, so we had to add them in for our copiers and our paper and our water. So we added in a little over $60,000 into the operating. And in the capital, we just had a couple projects moved. We had the 911 and kitchen refresh was moved out of 26 into 25, but then we added in the Betterton EMS office and bunk refresh. And then we took out the Millington pool drain. So all in all, we have an increase of 360,000, and most of that's due to the large number, the large increase from the public schools. So that's where we're starting today. So if we just kind of walk through quick.
One more question.
Absolutely.
When you talked about the school,
Uh-huh,
that 801,000, that's over and above what Kerwin is calling for.
correct. Kerwin is 815,000. And we'll get to that in just one second.
Okay.
So on the revenue, our revenues have not changed. We still have that $2.3 million. Nothing has changed there. On the expenditure side, you can see that new state mandates number, that's gone down from the 438 to the 277. So that's teachers' pensions and the SDAT office. So our new expense total is $73,097,000. So at this point in the process, our expenditures exceed our revenues by $6,077,000. So if we look at that and see what that means to us, if we look at our fund balance projection, we are projecting to end FY25 with about $22.8 million. We have, very strong fund balance position entering fiscal year '26. Right now in the budget, where if we were to pay for everything that's in here, we would reduce that by that $6,077,000. And you can see our targeted fund balance would be $5,482,000, and so our available fund balance above that is a little over $11 million too. So it looks, when you look at it in total, it looks like, we have a really strong position. However, when you break it up into recurring and non-recurring pieces, that's where we have our challenges. So if we look at the non-recurring section of the budget, the non-recurring section of the budget is paid for out of fund balance and the lease proceeds, and it pays for the capital expenditures and the transfer to the capital projects funds. So with our fund balance, if we pay cash for everything that we have in there, we're going to end with a surplus of 12.7 million. So that'll be a really strong, healthy ending fund balance position. However, on the recurring side, our recurring revenues, which exclude the lease proceeds, which we mentioned above, we're going to end up with a deficit of $1.5 million. So at this point, what our challenge is to take $1.5 million out of the budget to balance the recurring side of it. So if we go down and look at the next slide, where are those recurring categories? So it's in our public schools. And as we mentioned, the total increase that they're asking now is for 1.6 million. It's 801,000 over the mandated. Salaries and benefits, right now we have an increase of 1.9 million. That has 5 new positions in it that are $500,000, and it has a 4% salary increase in it. That's 563,000. County allocations, I pulled out the non-recurring piece of this, so these are only the recurring pieces. So if you remember, we had those 2 large one-time FY25 numbers that are sit on the non-recurring side. So our county allocations are increasing 303. Most of that is in Upper Shore Aging and the Health Department, and I think we may want to revisit the Upper Shore Aging. We have some additional information on that. On the operating side, our operating budgets are going up 737,000. We usually can, take a look at this, look at the running rates, and there's usually some reductions we can make out of these categories if we look and see where our numbers are ending in FY25. So we can certainly run that exercise. We also think that we have an opportunity to pay for, I guess, what the MAT grant is paying for. And what's the other funding source,
So the
Sheldon?
MAT grant, the application is in, we have no idea if we're gonna get the funding or not. If we don't, I would recommend that our plan B is to pay for that out of the opioid restitution fund. The part of that funding, we have to apply to the state and be approved, and there's a whole process. Part of it comes directly to the county, and we just have to attest to the fact that we are using it appropriately. On this second piece here, there is enough to pay for a year's worth of the MAT program. That doesn't solve the problem long-term.
Tell me again what the MAT program is.
That's the medically assisted treatment.
Okay.
That is the opioid,
Okay.
the medications that we have to provide for anybody addicted to opioids, substance abuse disorder.
Okay. Well, before we go any further, somebody got to explain something to me, because listen, I feel sorry for Dr. McComas. She seems to be doing a great job, and she's not adversarial at all, and I apologize for this, but all we've heard for 3 or 4 years now is Kerwin. People are fighting it, don't want to have to do it, but we're told you're going to do it. What's the argument that we should go a penny more than what Kerwin says we should spend?
I'm not sure when they're coming in. I think it's
But
probably.
I guess it's better to ask her
I
that
think she
question.
could probably articulate it. We did have a meeting with her. I think she could probably articulate her needs better than I could summarize them. I'm not sure what day she's going to be here.
But how do you do?
So there's a couple things statewide that they're seeing, Ronnie, is they came up with these funding formulas, I don't know, a couple years ago, and they were confident that if the counties paid their share and the state paid their share, that it would fund the program, and it's clearly not. So I think it almost,
But what it's funding is Kerwin, it's just not funding anything above Kerwin. Whatever is mandated in Kerwin would be the jurisdiction's responsibility to pay for.
So we're being asked to fund Kerwin plus two times Kerwin.
right, I mean, there are certain things like I mean, there's examples, I guess the one I always think of is the planetarium at the high school. That doesn't doesn't fall under
And
any of
really,
the,
that is no question is a problem. You could
Right.
probably go to the radio station, look in there for another problem. You could go to the planetarium, as you said. You could go to probably the band and the athletics
And
and
sports team.
all that kind of
After-school
stuff.
programming.
And that's the fault of the Kerwin, but I swear, the county can't be responsible for fixing the problems that other people create. I mean, the federal government did, correct me if I'm wrong, they're taking the COVID money back that wasn't spent or something.
I
Yes,
heard
sir.
something about that this
Yes, sir.
morning, yeah.
So we just can't keep making up for all this stuff that other people are doing. But you're right, I need to save that argument, but that looks like $800,000 that I'm not gonna have to spend. Or maybe I will have to, but
We're
I
not-
won't like it.
You're not mandated to, so it's
Right.
certainly, it's optional.
I was at the meeting last night. Her plan right now, from what she stated at the meeting, is that she's going to present the budget to us on May 6th. The Board of Ed will have a good idea what the budget ends up looking like on the 5th, if I'm correct. And some of the reasons why she finds herself in this position is all of the COVID money that was given out, whether you agree with it or not. There was like $15 million that was received by the Board of Ed over that time period, I believe. That was given out to create necessary positions for helping kids get through the trauma of the COVID situation. The other thing that they're dealing with is that they have a reduced enrollment, which means we get less, or they get less money from the state. Her fix to what she's done so far, because at one point it was $1.7 million. She was able to get it in addition to the 815. She was able to get it down to 801 by basically just trimming the positions that were created because of COVID, which should have been done a long time ago, and she recognizes that it should have been done over the last 3 or 4 years, knowing that there was going to be a sunset on that funding.
COVID money.
But no one took the initiative back then to do that. And now it's, I forget the word that she used for, it's right sizing is what she referred to it as this year. But if you look at what the blueprint's going to cost us next year, it's going to be a lot more than 815,000. If I remember correctly, it's like $1.7 million.
And it's going to be compounded by the fact that this budget, her FY '26 budget, proposed budget, will be using approximately $1 million worth of remaining fund balance, which obviously is non-recurring.
But it's gonna be used for recurring costs, which that $1 million they're gonna spend, not gonna be there next year.
Next year, exactly.
So that's gonna be on top of this budget? I mean, that's gonna be additional funding we gotta come up with. You're only postponing it for a year, then you're gonna pay that $1 million. And then plus this 800,000, plus whatever they jack on top of us next year.
Correct.
So this is what you call kicking the can down the road, but that can getting ready to stop here in a couple of years and we'll be in trouble. I don't see how we won't be. I'm just, I'm just
agree totally.
stating some of the obvious. I don't know.
You know, to me, our fund balance dollars should be used for one-time expenses. They don't really have any one-time expenses. They got one capital item in there for $15,000. They're also, as we know, getting $150,000 for the middle school for some renovations. And I don't know whether there's going to be a need for more for that or not, but that was a nice gift from the state.
But if they're gonna do some work on the middle school, in my opinion, that's where that $1 million should go to. Because then it's not reoccurring it's spent once on repairs.
Then their request to us would be higher.
The worst thing is that, the way I look
request a
at
lot too, and I don't get it.
it, is that the COVID money, everybody thought was great, everybody loved having it, and it probably did some good. But it stopped, and now it's being
over.
put back on us. Fortunately, she's already taken the initiative to cut 36 positions. Now, I don't know what type of positions they are. There's also a possibility, because they've offered a retirement incentive for anyone that is eligible to retire or wants to. And I don't know how that's going to play out. And I think today was May 12th, I think is the date that they'll know if there's anybody that's going to be separating for retirement or other reasons. And they have no intentions on filling those positions. I think we need, I am very supportive of the kids, very supportive of the wonderful teachers we have. I think Dr. McCombs has done a great job. But I am pretty dead set at this point in time on the blueprint funding and living with that, living within our means. Because that's what we're mandated to do. And if we go above that, it's going to bite us. Not that we even have the funds. I mean, we've only got $2.3 million to run the whole county.
Right.
And if we were to give her, that's $1.6 million gone out of the 2.3, that's not fair. To anybody.
That leaves you
And I-
$700,000.
Yeah, and I don't think that we can go that way.
And that 4%, if you used 4% as a pay raise, that was 563, right?
Correct.
Not counting the new positions. I don't know what they're for yet. I don't remember whether we decided to keep any or
EMTs.
not, but there's
EMT.
563
So, yeah, I think we
that's
should,
got to come out,
yeah. If you
or
look
unless
at,
you, if you do 4%, that's hypothetical.
and if you kind of look at these variances, this is where the $1.5 million has to come out of. So, the maximum that can come out of the public schools number is that 800,000. You could do less than that, but you can't take more than that out. The new positions would be someplace to look, the salary increase would be someplace to look. If we fund that detention center item for 172, that would get that much of it. A really big chunk of this is sitting in wastewater services with their repairs and maintenance. I'm not sure if there's anything there that can be deferred, but those are kind of the places that we have to look to find this 1.5. So even if we take your position that we're going to fund maintenance of effort, we're halfway there. We'll take out 100,000, now we're looking for 700,000 to balance it.
Well, she has a plan if she has to go that route. She'll have to cut 6 more positions or 7 more positions. And of course, we don't know what the retirement incentive is going to do, if it's going to give her some wiggle room there too.
That's,
Not to my knowledge, because what did she say, 21 people are eligible to retire?
but it's one-time money, right? So that might, I mean, it's a one-time cost.
Right, but there are only 21 or 26 people that are eligible to retire, so it doesn't get you to the full number.
To the full
that
number,
you
The
should-
okay.
salaries would be reoccurring.
Right, the
And,
salaries,
and the benefit costs would be reoccurring
correct.
Right.
if they didn't retire. So it's not just one-time money, it's
But if they,
reoccurring.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought they were offering some kind of incentive, that's what I meant, that would
But
be
I
a
don't know
one-time
what the
cost.
incentive is, you know.
Now, did you say that they're eliminating 36 positions?
36.
36.
I have not listened to the meeting
Now,
last night.
they're
so-
actually telling 36 people you lost your job?
So it's kind of
they-
a tier system. First, they're offering incentives for retirement. So they're hoping that that's the big chunk, that people will
Okay.
take those retirements. Next would be through normal attrition. Somebody got a job or is moving to
Just moving away
Nevada,
or something.
so maybe they'll lose 5 people
Okay.
for normal reasons. And then beyond that, it's riffing, reduction in force. So they would be telling people that do not return.
Do we know how many less children we had this year?
Yes.
Yes,
we're just under 1,600, I think it's 1,594, and last year was, I think, 1,621. It's somewhere in that,
Almost 30 kids
it's
again.
somewhere in that range.
I
Do
think
you
in the
remember?
last 3 or 4 years, it's been significant. I don't think I have that schedule
Okay,
shown.
I can pull it up, I know I have it.
And last night, they said that enrollment's going to decline, it's projected to decline up until basically 2029, where it will start to go up, or they're projecting that it's going to go up a little bit then. But until 2029, the enrollment's going to go, the funding from the state's going to be less. So, she's done a great job trying to, in my opinion, to trim her budget. And none of us like to see positions cut. But some of these positions that she's made the decision to eliminate were positions that unfortunately should have been eliminated a long, long time ago.
Right.
And
Right.
they were pretty much
They were created during that COVID
what I call
period.
grant funded.
Right.
And we all know, when you take a grant funded position, there's no guarantee.
Right, it's twofold. There's a lot of grant-funded positions, but then number two, there wasn't the right sizing as the enrollment went down. So
No.
now we're looking at, let's say, 5 years of enrollment decreasing, and we're saying, whoa, why haven't we been reducing the workforce naturally because of that?
And you can't really blame her for that because she wasn't there.
I don't blame Dr. Comas for anything
No.
except being in a bad spot. That's what I blame her for, and it's not her fault. But, and maybe I should hold some of these questions till when she gets here, but how about the classroom sizes? Do we have room to, is there room to,
Okay, so this is.
if our population's decreasing and we're getting rid of some of these teachers, you would think, how's that affect classroom sizes and
This
stuff?
is from her presentation last night. So this is directly off a slide that was presented last night at the board meeting. Currently, 43% of our secondary classes have 15 or fewer students. So what that means is in the middle school, high school, we have some room, some wiggle room there. I believe, as I understand it, the primary grades have much higher classroom counts. So that's not where they would be looking as much.
She envisioned last night that 22 might be the number in the classroom, which is the, I wouldn't say gold star standard, but what they say is the norm
That's pretty close to a gold star standard.
for a one teacher in the room type of situation. You know, I haven't had this conversation with her either, but I think that with all the talent that we have here in this county, and all the people that are so willing to help children through the right vetting process, there could be a volunteer group that could go in and help in the classrooms, as opposed to, you know, I don't like cutting jobs, I don't like people being unemployed, but we didn't create this. And we don't have the money to pay for it. And yet we have one-time money, but we know what that means. That's not wise.
And even if we could pay for it, it's gonna make 2 years down the road totally impossible.
One year down the road.
One, yeah. It's just making everything a lot worse.
Yeah, somebody's already said it, you know, the blueprint's supposed to be the fix-all. And guess what, it's not. From the state and from the county's revenue
Oh,
sources.
if you listen to them talk about it, it's the greatest thing since the invention of the wheel. But it's not turning out that way. But nobody in the legislature wanted to talk about it this year. Mum's the word over there.
The student count for this year is 1694, and last year it was 1731. That's a reduction of 34. The previous year, it was 1751, which was a reduction of 19. So we're steady going down. I mean, I'm looking.
I've been doing it for as long as I've been here.
So ironically, her chart from last night, Dr. McComas's chart from last night, goes back to the very first year that I started here. I'm sure she didn't do that on purpose, but what it clearly shows is with as long as I've been with the county, I mean, we're in a steady decline.
I think we only have one choice, and I think it's the fair way of communicating with Dr. McComas is, and she may be listening to this presentation, I don't know. But I feel that someone needs to reach out from the county. You know, I actually had a meeting with her last Monday, a very, very positive meeting, told her the status of where the county was, wasn't trying to represent you, Albert, or Ronnie, just letting her know the position that the county was in. And she took it upon herself to cut the 1.7 request down to 801 prior to last night's meeting. And I know she has a plan, if it's needed, to reduce that. And I would think that we would be well-served by expressing to her that she needs to do what she can do, because we're not going to be able to go much beyond the 815,000, the mandated funding. That would be my suggestion. And I think she's probably suspecting that that's coming in here.
When you were talking about the 172 for the detention center grant, what's that supposed to cover?
So if we, it's in the budget right now in the operating expenses. If we assume that we're either going to get the MAT grant, or in the absence of the MAT grant, we're going to use the opioid
Oh, you're just,
funds,
that's
we could
what I
take
was
that
trying to
out.
connect.
We could, that's.
You would take the MAT grant to pay for that.
Right.
Oh,
And if we
gotcha.
don't get it, that we would commit to use the, was it the opioid?
Opioid restitution
Thank you.
fund. So one way or the
The
other,
other, it could come out.
with your permission, we can cover it for this coming year.
So that would be one,
If you give us a head nod, we can take that out right now. I see one head
You
nodding.
got my head nod.
I'm good with it too.
take it out?
That
Okay.
covers the costs of
Well,
staffing
and
the
let's hope
MAT
the grant
program
pays
and the
for it, but it's
medication.
not, we've got a backup plan.
Okay.
The 172 is in there to cover what?
Staffing and the actual medication for the medically assisted
Right.
treatment.
They've applied for the grant, but we don't know if we're going to get it, so we had to put it in here so that we're covered in the event that we don't get the grant. I'm not sure when we will know, when,
Wasn't it mid-June?
Hopefully by end of May or June.
end of May,
Yeah.
okay.
So kind of too late for us to plan.
But we got a
So-
good backup.
So that's,
Yeah, but we have a great backup.
I'm a little thick, but that's for the staffing to administer the MAT grant, if we get it. That-
Yeah, right, exactly. It's for the actual telemedicine appointments for the incarcerated individuals. It's for the actual medication. It's for tracking the data. It's for the whole
And
initiative.
if we get the MAT grant, we won't need that.
Correct.
Oh.
And if we don't get the MAT grant, we do have the Plan B
I got
with the
you, okay.
So-
opioid restitution.
So I can
fund.
take it out of here, because one way or another, it'll move to a grant fund, and it'll be covered by a different source of revenue. So
Okay.
if we agree that we're going to use either one of those two sources of revenue, I can remove the expenses from the general fund.
I'm fine with you
'cause we know-
removing it. My
Okay.
colleagues are.
I am.
Okay.
But the 172, Ronnie, that's not the total medical budget for the detention center. This is
Correct.
for
Right.
a specific program
Just for this MAT program.
Yeah.
Correct.
for opiate abuse or addiction.
Medication assisted treatment, yeah.
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 And-
And I remind you, and we're paying that because we're mandated to pay it for anywhere from 28 to as many as 35, some not even our own county inmates on a weekly basis.
Of whom only a fraction are addicted to opioids.
Right.
So,
So it's a lot of money
If it ain't.
for the
The state made this
population it
mandate,
serves.
I believe it was in 2017, does that sound right, Joanne? 2017? 2016. And we have been fighting ever since then to get the state to include this in their budget. If it's their mandate, why aren't they paying for the counties to administer this?
You could say that about a lot of things.
Well, that's a true statement.
So, there's one more slide here. These are kind of the cost cutting. We actually do have a couple of revenue options in here that I just feel the need to present. Our opportunities to increase revenues, there was an income tax bill that survived legislation that will allow the county to increase its rate from 3.2 to 3.3. It's not a big increase, it's a 3.125% increase, but it would generate $673,000 in additional income tax revenue. The problem is that the increase we could start with taxable year 2025, which seems a little odd because we're already in taxable year 2025, but we can implement it. But because of the way the income tax is distributed to the counties, it takes 3 years for us to receive the whole thing. I mean, that's how long it takes because, as you know, so we're in the year now, people will be making estimated payments, but they won't file their tax returns for this year until next year, and then you can extend. And so by the time, all those extensions are met, the money would trickle in over 3 years, but the annual amount of additional revenue that we could generate would be $673,000 if you wanted to consider that. The other thing is the water, wastewater, sewer rates. A 1% increase in the rate generates $46,470 of revenue. So those are kind of the two options I just wanted to put out there. They are options if you have.
Built-in currently is a 4% increase.
Correct.
So a 1% means 5%.
Yes, thank you, those are additional.
Do what?
So currently built into the
The
budget
4%
is
right,
4%.
yes.
So if you were to increase the user rates to 5%, that's what the 1% is, because that's 1% over what is currently in the book.
Did we raise it 4% last year?
Yes. And it's in there again this year. It's a decision made every year.
So we
So,
can decide, because there's been years where we didn't raise it.
correct, and we have a funding schedule I can show you. There's years where we didn't, there's years where we reduced it, there's years where we did 6 instead of 4.
There was
So-
one year, I think there was a 2% increase.
Yeah, I mean, I can pull up that schedule if you want to see it. But these would be the options on the other side for generating more revenue.
Now, that's assuming, and you're assuming so far that we're going to raise it 4%.
That's with the assumption of the
Yes.
4%
The 4%.
increase.
Yes, if the 4% comes out, yeah, we'd be going in the other direction.
So the water bills are pretty much all the same. Depending
There's
on,
vacant lot charges, or there's, and it goes by, if you go over a certain amount of consumption, there's an additional
12,000
charge.
There's 12,000 gallons.
Yes.
So, on average, what does that do to an individual's home's bill quarterly?
We have
Roughly.
that,
I can get it for you,
but
but
it's just in a different schedule.
The only problem with that is, and we've done it a lot of years, so I'm not saying we won't do it, but the only problem with that is a lot of that water, those water and wastewater rates
Yeah.
are in areas of the county that can really afford it the least.
this has been the struggle for
Unfortunately.
years.
But that, everybody's still got to pay their share, but that's,
I can bring back a schedule next week that shows you what the impact on all the rates would be. I don't have it with me here today.
now some of them people down Tilechester there, what we could do is double theirs and
And then give
take it
some
off
else for it.
someplace else.
Yeah.
You just let me know how you want me to do it. So I don't know, again, these are just opportunities to keep in the back of your mind if you're, I know nobody likes to raise taxes.
I would say we see what we can do with what we got first, and then we'll
I mean, there's
review.
also-
That'll be our last little draw,
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
certainly giving us information to consider.
yeah.
yeah, and I mean, even if not this year, we know Kerwin is going to be more next year, and there's also the,
If it survives, it might be.
Yeah, the sediment from Annapolis, that if you're not fully taxing on the income tax, that they're not
Don't
going to
ask for
help
money.
you. So, I mean,
They've put the counties in a predicament here.
yeah, and there's already one county, Tanya passed on some paperwork, I can't remember which one, that is implementing the 3.3% rate. You have to let them know by May 15th if you want to do it for this tax year. Normally, you have to let them know by July 1 for the tax year that starts in January. So if we decided not to do it this year, if we wanted to do it for tax year 2026, we would have to let them know by July 1 of 2025. So it's just something to keep in mind as we go. So with all that said, is there an area, I mean, do we want to look at the new positions? Do we want to look at water, wastewater services projects?
I'd like to see us talk about the allocations for upper sewer aging real quick and get that resolved,
Okay,
if we could.
sure. So I have some supporting schedules here that I'm going to pull up. We went back and looked at it. So in the '24 budget, we got a letter, and it said that they were asking for an increase of $175,000, which we funded. So their funding went up from, let's see, in FY '23, we funded them $162,000. And in FY '24, we added $175 to that, and we funded them $337. In FY '25, we funded them $354. So it's been going up. So we wanted to take a look to kind of see what their surpluses and deficits look like. So I pulled some of their financial statements because we request that they submit them. So this schedule shows, this is 22, this column over here on the right, and this is 23. And so in those years, they had, in '22, they had a deficit of $72,000. But then in '23, they had a surplus of $81,000. And then if we go look at FY '24, they had a surplus of $70,000. So it looks like they're no longer running in the red, they're running in the black. The last thing that I looked at was their balance sheet, and this net assets for operations. It's kind of like their unassigned fund balance. So this is FY, let's see, which schedule am I on here? Screens aren't big enough. In FY '23, they had a fund balance of 311, and now they're up to 418. So I guess the question is, you know, when they came to us, they were running the deficits. They're no longer running the deficits. You know, is there a chance that, you know, maybe we could scale that number back a little bit?
Well, they came, last year they came and asked for $50,000 for meals,
And I don't have,
middle of the year, and we gave them that.
Yeah.
And this year they're asking for $50,000.
they're asking for,
It's for more, it's closer to 75,000 because it's the meals and the delivery. So to increase the meals, it's about 75,000.
I would suggest that they can pay for that out of this year's out of their fund balance.
yeah, or maybe we, you know, some.
Is it
some-
75,000 they're asking for?
No, it's more than that.
Yeah, they're asking for, well, if you don't consider the contingency, because it came out of contingency, but I guess we have to. So if you add the 50, what was it, 50 out of the contingency, Shelley?
Last
For
year.
that, last year for 25? So that would have brought it up to let's say 420, and they're asking for 482. So they're asking for 60-some thousand on top of what we funded, counting the contingency. So I guess the question is, I don't know what their numbers look like for '25, but for '24 and '23, they ran a surplus. So I'm not sure if you want me to get more information or if you,
Well, the bottom line is they're asking for what? What's the number they're asking for?
roughly 60,000 over what they asked for last year.
60,000 is the new request.
Right. 60,000 plus the 50,000, so 111,000, right?
Right, but if
Is
you
total.
it depends, if you consider
Right.
that 50 in contingency as part of their request, then that 111 would go down by 50,000. It's 60, it would be 61,000 over what
Right.
they asked for last year plus the contingency money. So if you take what they asked for last year plus the contingency, they're asking for 60,000 over that. So
Well, I don't like to see fund balance. Now, I know that's not that's not a great fund balance, but it is, I mean, it's,
Yeah, when they came in and asked for the big bump, they were running deficits, which
Yeah.
they're just, they're not. They're not huge surpluses, but they're running surpluses, so, I mean,
look, I'd be saying, give it to them if I thought I was punishing in Meals on Wheels or something for those elderly people. But when you're sitting on 400,000, and I think you can afford to get rid of 60, knowing that we're here if you get in a jam.
they can always come back for contingency.
Yes. That's just, I don't know.
I agree with you.
So are you saying take out this fund them flat with what they got plus the contingency last year?
And let them know that, to feel, that's their money just anyhow, but they could spend it knowing that we're here if they get in a jam. But there's no sense letting money sit on the shelf on years when you really, every dollar counts. But I would emphasize the fact that we're not pulling the rug out from under you. We're just use a little bit of that, and we're here if you need us.
Okay.
Does that sound all right to you?
Yeah, unfortunately.
What are we taking out?
61,176. So now, if we're keeping track,
So they're gonna be held flat to the 482,962.
No, what I'm hearing is,
they're gonna be held flat to the,
370.
well, kind of.
the 371 plus the 50 contingency.
Right.
So what they actually got in '25, which is, that 50,000 is not on that schedule. You'd have to take that 371 and add 50 to it. But the variance there, that 111,176, if you added the 50,000 and it would come out of there, you're really increasing 61,176 over last year's funding, including the contingency request. Which is what I'm hearing you say we should take it. So we're basically level funding
Yeah.
and saying if you need it, come back.
I think the question is, because I think two of you are on different pages, do you want to level fund at last year's allocation rate? Or level fund at last year's allocation rate plus 50,000?
Because we give that to them, that's the 50,000 they got middle of the year. Well, we gave it to them,
I mean, officially, you gave it to them as a one-time bump.
That's true.
so it would be funding them level
And what's their fund balance?
without that.
418,000.
Look, they know we have the back if they need it.
Okay, so am I
I
hean,
mean,
Then we would take
I'm here.
110 or 11, right?
take the whole 111 out?
Yes.
Okay.
That would, why let it sit there on the shelf? If they need it, come back to us, and we're not gonna turn them down, we all know that. But I just don't like when things get tight, the money's sitting on the shelf.
Okay, so,
So we're gonna keep them flat at 371,786.
yes, that's what I'm hearing you say, right? Okay. All right, so if we take that and add that to the 172, so now we've taken out 283,000. Okay. Want to look at the new positions? Want to look at water, wastewater?
The new positions, are they all EMTs?
No,
I would recommend we start there because there is something in there that you haven't heard yet
haven't seen
today.
it, yeah.
So there's a new piece of information in there that I believe you should hear.
Okay, so the new
I
positions.
think one of them is a resource officer now that I think
Yeah,
about
there's-
it.
The one that we haven't really talked about is the
That's-
one at the election office. So there's 4 EMTBs, and we've talked about those, the school resource officer, but this election program IT specialist, and I have we have an email into Shamandia trying to get some better information, but I guess what we wanted to share, and I'm gonna jump down here, there's a schedule. Okay, so this is the election office staffing. There are 5 positions listed here. In fiscal year '25, there were only 2 of them filled. We budgeted for 4 of them. and only 2 were filled so far. In FY '26, they want a budget for 5 of them. So I think the question becomes, is, are we going to fill these 3 positions? The 2 that haven't been filled for FY '25, I'm not, I don't know why. And I think we need to get some more information on that. The new position that they're asking for this year is for an IT specialist. But if you look at the value of the 3 vacant positions, which are the last 3, that it's $215,000. So I think it's worth talking about, what staffing is truly needed there. Could it be more of a seasonal thing than a full-time?
Who actually sets these salaries?
The state. So we have job specs for these jobs, and they're state jobs.
Well, if they're state jobs, don't you think they should be state funded? Or is that just a silly question?
I'm gonna write a
That's
letter
that's
to the
I'm thinking
governor
of something
for you to
that's dumb.
sign.
That's a unique perspective.
The state also mandates how much we pay them for increases every year. We have zero control over that.
That's correct. So, I'm
See,
not
when
quite
you
sure.
took his job, you thought you was in charge. We were in charge, didn't you? We're really not. We're just pawns right here.
So who's been doing the IT work?
I don't, I think they contracted some of it
To the
out.
best I can understand, they contract it out when they need somebody. I do know that they've been relying heavily on the state, and the state doesn't really have the resources to, allow somebody to come out here when they
Don't
need.
believe that.
Well,
I'm gonna write another letter for your signature.
So,
it's hard to look up there and see 2 paid positions. They wanted 2 more, and then they didn't fill them, and now they want a 3rd one.
I think those 2 positions have been vacant since I've started.
So I
for
think
10
it,
years.
I think it's worth maybe what we can do is put a pool of money, like cut this in half maybe and put a pool of money if they need to contract something out. I don't know. I'm waiting for more information, but I just wanted to make you aware of this situation when we're talking about the new positions. I think,
I thought we had a hiring freeze.
huh?
Thought we had a
Hiring freeze? They're state positions.
State doesn't have a hiring freeze? They should.
The state is rehiring people, as I understand it.
So,
So they hire them, and we have to fund them.
that's correct. They
That's
send
right.
us their payroll and we send them a check. And it's legislated. We're obligated to pay them for their.
But we ain't obligated to give them the positions.
I'm honestly not sure. I think we really need more information. I'm not sure what the state mandates they do. Clearly, I guess they're allowed to not fill them because they've remained vacant. So my thought is that
Well, there's one way
no.
to find out the answer. to that.
I'm awaiting those answers, but I just wanted to let you know that this might be an opportunity for
Okay.
some dollars. At most, it would be, those 3 vacant positions, like I said, are worth $215,000 in the FY '26 budget. So hopefully, by next time we get together, I'll have more information, but it's just another, something to look at. So if we go back,
Make a suggestion.
sure,
And I don't want to burden with all these letters, but maybe we should correspond with her, the director, and say, look, this is not a good year to try to fill those vacancies. We know we don't have any control over it, but we don't have the funds.
It's your discretion to approve another position or not.
and,
That
Oh,
is not the state's.
The IT position, I say no to.
yeah,
But how do you, maybe she needs an IT position more than she needs a
Well,
trainee.
then do what she's been doing and contracts it out, and I'll just know what she needs as far as the contract.
I'm wondering, I like Pat's idea of just a pool of money
I
and
like
let her
that
pick.
idea and let her pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you could at least cut it in half or
Yeah.
a third and
Yeah.
just say,
In other words, out of the 3 positions, let her
yeah,
pick
whatever,
one.
yeah.
One.
Pick one, but then go ahead and fill it.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a seasonal need or a
Or a
year-round
seasonal need,
need.
yeah,
I'm not
seasonal.
sure.
Or, I mean, if you give her a pool of money and she determines she
Yeah,
can
every 2
contract
years.
it out, that's her decision. Do we really care whether it's a
Every 2
full-time
years.
or contracted?
What's that? Right, oh, yes, yes, I got you, yes.
I mean, I don't know what they do
Right.
the rest of the time.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't either.
I mean, the thing is, if we leave it as requested, we're tying up budget dollars that most likely we're not going to use, if history is, prologue here.
You have the actual here, or the
Yeah.
projected?
I mean, I
Projected.
definitely, I mean, I'd almost, yeah, for sure, we're not, my opinion is not 3. I like the idea of pooling it and/or saying, hey, if you need a IT specialist, then you're not getting your assistant or your, something like that. I mean, I don't know.
Pat, can you scroll that back up for a minute?
Down or up?
And I don't
Oh,
know,
you are, okay.
I don't know this world,
Down?
but
Right there.
I would, just looking at the numbers, I mean, in an election year, could you contract out 3 positions? But in the election year, you need 0. I mean, for all I know, it could be something in between.
I mean, and I don't think there's FY, or calendar year, there's no election in November, right? Or primary?
This year?
Yeah.
Not at county or state, right? Maybe some municipalities, but.
That's not,
Right, I
they don't do
understand, yeah, right,
municipal.
right.
They only do county, state, and federal.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's an election or a primary in the spring.
So what is she using in
No,
her
there'll be a
budget
primary
now?
in the spring. I'm
I was
sorry?
gonna say,
What is she using in her budget to pay for contractual IT work?
I'd have to take a look at it. I don't think she's over budget in her operating budget. She's got enough to pay for it.
No, but I mean, what does she normally pay on an annual basis, do we know, or
Let's
for,
see.
for IT services?
so
I think I do have it.
the spring, in the spring, she will have a primary
Okay.
next year. That'll be FY '26's.
So we can move on. Why don't we leave the IT, because, look, IT is becoming the thing. I mean, we
That's what we-
wonder if we leave that in there and do away with the other 2 for the time being. We can always come back
Spring, or
and
they
take
move
it
it
out.
back again?
But
Is
that
it
lets
back on
us,
schedule?
that lets us save
Back on schedule.
$130,000 and we can,
Okay, so
and
take,
then we can come back once
take
you
that
find
dollar
out some
value
more
out.
of the answers.
Okay.
Right.
So the trainee and the assistant, the dollar value of those 2.
Now, while we're talking about that, this isn't a budget issue, but I've had a call about that agency, the elections office, complaining that, of course, we haven't moved ahead with finding them another home, and that they don't have room to have meetings when they have elections, I guess, just prior to. Why couldn't they use that beautiful room out there at the community center?
They could.
They could.
As far as I know. I mean, they might have to transport equipment. I don't know if they do
I
demonstrations
mean,
or
I don't
what.
know what equipment, I'm not talking about setting it up as a voting spot or
No, no, no.
nothing, but if they have all these people that work
Mm-hmm.
the polls and they have meetings and gathering, you could just offer them, maybe they haven't thought about it, but that's a beautiful room out there that's not used much.
Right.
That that at least could solve that problem
Right.
temporarily until we find them a new home,
I
if we
think when they
do.
do those bigger meetings, they are training, so they need to take some equipment, but there's no saying that they couldn't take that equipment on the road. They take them to the polling sites. So,
Well, if it's something that's real cumbersome, I mean, then they got an argument, but if it's not, if it's
So
something they
we
can
can-
take with them,
we can offer
at
it.
least offer it to them, because it's a beautiful meeting room and it'll hold a bunch of people
sure.
until we figure out where we go with the office.
Well, and this is a beautiful meeting room as well.
Well, that's true.
We've got a really nice one out at Public Works, in the center of the Public Works facility.
Well, any one of them, but the call I got, we don't have a place to have meetings prior to elections and stuff.
Okay.
So maybe we just offer them one of these spots
Absolutely.
to use.
One last comment about the positions, especially the IT one. I personally like the contract physicians better, depending on what the cost is, because then you don't have to pay the benefits of an employee and so forth and so on, so.
Well, that part's, that's true.
So just maybe keep that in the back of our minds.
All right, and if you see that percentage under the benefits, that's the benefit percentage. So these light numbers right here, like in FY '26, that's the benefit percentage, so they're relatively high. Okay, all right, so if we're taking those two out, now we're up to 416,000. If we go back up and look at the other ones,
And there is a very detailed memo that Pat just scrolled by from Pete Landon, Director Landon, that discusses the justification for the E EMTBs.
Now, has that got something to do with, Sheriff, you know better than I would, is this dealing with what might be the problem up to Betterton?
This is 100% that,
Yeah.
This is to solve that problem.
right. And the memo goes into details about.
So basically, what we're doing is taking where we were manning 3 spots, we're talking about manning 4 spots.
Pete was supposed to get us the call volume.
So this does not, the memo does not exactly, can you scroll down, Pat? It
Sure, you
doesn't
wanna see
talk
the memo?
about call volume per se. I mean, it does, but it's more general terms. It's more philosophical than actual numbers. But you can see the headings, and if it's too small, I can read it aloud. Affiliated EMS clinicians and operational capacity.
can you see that?
And I guess we actually, in one way, we made the situation better for the town of Chestertown by moving a new facility right here. And the cut, that was pointed out at the last meeting, we cut the response time down. But we also took it further away from a place like Betterton area, I guess.
Correct.
So, I mean, this is page, I think, 5 and 6 in your book, if you can't see it on the screen, but, in the new positions section. Maybe it's 4 and 5, let's see. Yeah, the first memo on page 2 was the one you've already seen, so it's pages 3 and 4 that have the new information.
And one of the sections is population surge and seasonal EMS demand, which is true. There is a seasonal surge, as I'm sure Commissioner Nickerson can attest. We all know that the camps and the beach.
Basically, what this is going to do for 24-hour coverage is allow an ambulance to respond from that fire station. The paramedic will be coming from Chestertown, Rock Hall, or Galena.
Correct.
But the EMT will be able to,
The EMT at least gets
Get
the
started.
ambulance on the road.
gotcha.
Is there a section of this, Shelley, that you think is more relevant?
And they have some training too, as far as.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah.
But not at the level of the paramedic.
Well, I want to be fair to the whole county, so leave it in there for now as far, what do you think, Albert?
I'd like to see it left in there for now, for sure.
I would, well,
Absolutely.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
We'll make it work
Okay.
somehow.
All right, so then the last one we need to talk about, oh, let me zoom this back in, is the school resource officer. This number still may be high, really not sure. This has health insurance in it, that 30,000 of health insurance, the salary's 52. We took the pension out of it. If we were to take health insurance out of it, it might take another 17 or 18,000 out of it. It just depends on the type of applicant we could attract. If it's a retired police officer who's got his health insurance and his retirement, that number might be a little lower. If it was somebody else, it'd probably be right where it's at. We'd probably have to add the pension back in. I can't remember if if there were any grant opportunities for those positions? No?
Did you hear that scoff?
Oh, we just leave it alone for now.
Leave it alone
I
for
mean, they-
now?
They got good arguments. I mean, we,
I'd like to float an idea, though.
Okay,
Now that Sheriff Hickman oversees the detention center to a certain degree, and they have a fairly good staff in there, that there might be somebody in there that might be willing to be a resource officer who has the ability to do a special police commission where they would be armed. If, in fact, Sheriff Hickman was agreeable to that, you could reduce one of your positions, and I know that detention center continues to say they're short-staffed, but I have difficulty agreeing with them on that. But anyhow, there might be a way to utilize a correctional officer and let them get their special police commission and serve as the school resource officer, and that way it doesn't cost us a dime.
I believe Sheriff Hickman will be coming in for a closed session in the near future to discuss staffing levels and his recommendations. I guess my question about using a correctional officer is, Pat, is this a full-time employee or is this someone that's hired seasonally? Do you know how it's costed?
it's costed at the hours for the job, it's not full-time.
So it's basically a 10-month job. So we would have to use that person doing something else for the other 2 months.
They can go back to the detention center, they're still gonna be certified.
Keep the certification.
Okay.
In other words, they wear two hats. 10 months out of the year, they wear one, and
Okay, so then
just an idea.
Okay, yeah, certainly worth exploring. Okay, so we've looked at the positions, that's what the salary increase is. We've talked about Upper Shore, we've talked about that. I think the last thing to look at is water, wastewater services. So,
I did a quick calculation for the rates, as long as we're back to water, wastewater. Right now, a quarterly bill, assuming 12,000 gallons or less, is $354.12. The 4% increase, which is what is proposed, raises that to $367.68. The reason it's not just a flat 4% is because the Bay Restoration fee is $15 flat. There's no increase there. So right now, what we have budgeted, just in rough numbers, it's about $350 per quarter, and it would be going up $13.56 per quarter. And if you want me to calculate, and you don't need to decide this today, but if you want me to do a calculation with some other increase, I could easily do that.
okay. So this are the main repairs and expenses in water, wastewater. They're about $2.4 million. The ARPA has been carrying these expenses for the last couple years. They're ranked here in order of priority. Unfortunately, it looks like the low dollar value ones are on the bottom of the list. I can reach out to Dan to see if there's any of these that he can push off for a year.
now, a lot of these repairs and stuff, aren't they sort of looked at as one time? I mean,
Well,
I guess you're
This
putting
number-
that amount of money into repairs every year, so I guess it is reoccurring.
It's reoccurring.
Just different projects.
it is. So
Okay,
this capital one down here,
I
like
get
this
you.
Kennedyville one, that's being offset by allocation fees. So, and these really are the one-time expenses down here in the capital. But this Kennedyville one, if we move forward with the Kennedyville project, what we get in allocation fees is going to cover the repairs to the Kennedyville pump station. So there's very little one-time money in here. And
Speaking
so,
of Kennedyville, where are we with, there was some interest in Kennedyville?
The RFP has not been released yet. It's in the final stage of review, and
Okay.
it will be released soon.
Who's holding that up?
Right now, it's still with Dan. He and Jessa are doing the last draft.
So,
We'll go to legal review.
Well, it pretty much has gone through legal review, so there's gonna be very little legal review left. So, we're really close to releasing that.
Now, at Kennedyville, moving that pump station, or relocating that pump station, if something materialized with Kennedyville, we got some one-time money to do that with, I guess.
that'll be the allocation fees. If.
It'll
if-
be,
Yeah.
that's right, it'll be,
There's 900.
you're right, the
yeah, if-
allocation fees should pay for most of
Yeah,
that.
this allocation, this 919,000, and I think the difference is being paid by the developer, but, yeah, so there's 919,000 of revenue in here if the project
gotcha.
goes forward. So really what we're, I mean, I don't know that there's much in the, this
To
is,
do this Kennedyville.
there's probably not much in the
Leave it
operating.
off at flat 900,000, if you, for you.
I want to see him do the bathrooms from Chestertown
That I do.
for that kind of money.
So I'm not sure if you want us to get more input from Dan on these, to see if there's anything that he feels comfortable delaying for a year. Otherwise, we could go from the bottom up in his order of priorities. We're still looking for about $1.1 million to cut.
Not out of that.
Well, and we have not,
Any of the above that we've talked about.
well, but we have not put in a number for the schools yet, so. I mean, if you're telling me that you're settled on a number for the schools, we'll be a lot closer.
Mike, I apologize, did you have you had a question a while ago earlier, I forgot.
Kelly, Shelley already answered it, it was the population of the school.
Okay.
She's right on.
I didn't want to ignore you.
And they're expecting a further reduction,
For the next several years.
9, 10, over the next 3 years, they're expecting a DLS projection is an additional 42 students over the next 3 years. Now, the classroom size on the low end, and this came out from Dan, the human resources guy, is that they've got classes as small, with less than 10 in the class, less than 10 students in the classroom. 20% of the 40%, I mean, there was a whole lot of percentages going on last night, but they've got classes with as small as 10, 12 is like the median, and then they've got some as high as 22. I can tell you, when I was a substitute teacher in there giving an AP math class, 6 kids in that classroom. There were 6 kids in that classroom. Give me a history class, and I've got 20, 22. So there is a wide variance, and what they're trying to do is average.
I got you.
That's why students are leaving.
Yeah,
When he was in classroom,
because you were
I
the,
didn't hear you.
he said that's why students are leaving. You were the substitute teacher.
Yes. I didn't think any crap.
Okay, so,
Would it behoove us, before we start
And
cutting?
if I could make one more point about what Ron is saying about Kerwin. If Kerwin didn't exist in fiscal year 2026, they would be asking for $19,700,000. If Kerwin did not exist, they would be asking for $19,700,000. Maintenance of effort or mandate is $20,200,000. It's $20,198,394. So it's basically $20,200,000. And she's asking for $800,000 more than that. She's basically asking $21,999. You're looking for $22 million, right? Basically, it's like $2.5 million more because of Kerwin. That's the number. If we wouldn't have Kerwin and she came in at the mandate, we'd be in the difference is $1.5 million. If she didn't have Kerwin, she'd have a surplus of $1.5 million. looking at it another way. It's crazy.
So what else do we have to look at real quick?
So
If
those are,
anything?
I mean, those are kind of the categories we can go
Where
to.
are we
I
at
mean,
this year?
I can go back into the operating and look at the running rates and bring back some suggestions where I think, probably can find $100,000 there, quite honestly, when we look, somewhere between 50 and 100. But
Where
these are,
somebody recurringly over projects.
Yeah.
We could
yeah.
comfortably,
Well, I appreciate, right,
Reduce.
yes, we appreciate them doing it.
Yeah, but, I mean, these are the categories, so if we're, it's in the public schools, if we're gonna leave the new positions alone, we could talk about the salary increase, or, I'm not sure if you wanna, that's usually one of the last decisions I think we make.
I'm gonna tell you, John and Albert might not believe this, but this is a relatively easy budget compared to ones we've seen in the past, Pat.
It's,
last
Right
year
or
was
wrong?
brutal.
no, you are correct. I mean, yes, I mean, we've had budgets with as little as $500,000 of revenue. We've had budgets
Absolutely.
that are flat with no new revenue.
Right. This, because of, well, it's a lot better and a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be going into it with the numbers and stuff. I've seen them way tougher than this one.
So.
But our challenge is, we know in a year or two, the next year or 2 years, it's gonna get much worse, and we almost gotta prepare ourselves for that as much as get through this one.
Well, not so as much as I hate to say it, I think we need to keep that income tax opportunity in the back of your minds.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because if you want to ask the state for any money, the first thing they're gonna say is.
Yeah, you didn't
back
even,
down.
they already said that to us.
Yep.
yeah, we've already seen people applying for it. So, I mean, just, doesn't have to be for this year, but we'd have to make that decision by July 1 for calendar year '26.
So we're gonna give a 4% salary increase and then take 3.5%.
Well, and the
Terrible.
health insurance rates are going up.
So, I mean, I can talk to Dan about the water wastewater. We can look at the operating, short
But
of.
that water, wastewater, no matter what we do there, we're kicking that can down the road, which is, I guess, what we
Yes.
all do in our own personal lives as well.
Correct, I mean,
So, but if
there may
you
be a
could-
project,
that-
there may be a
exactly,
project
yes.
or two that he feels comfortable.
Yes, and hopefully it gets us a year and we don't have to do it in the middle of the year.
And I think, the big elephant in the room is the school number. So, I mean,
True.
if you're not making a decision on that today, like I said, then we've taken out 416,000 out of the 1.5 million we need.
Well, I think we owe it to her to let her present her.
No,
case.
absolutely.
So
Okay.
here's,
I've heard the presentation,
Right.
I kind of feel like I know what needs to be done, but that's me. You guys probably would like to hear it.
she'll have a
I'd like to
public
hear it
hearing.
again.
She'll have a public hearing at the end of this month, and then she wants to come in on May 6th after her May 5th budget work session. If you'd like her to present a preliminary, basically what she produced last night for the Board of Ed meeting, I'm sure she'd be happy to do that, and then she could answer any questions. But they do still have a process, it is still in process. So you tell me what
I
you
think
would
that's a
like.
good idea, but let's let everybody hear what she has to say, and who knows, maybe she's found some other stuff, but
And the other areas is we have not looked at the capital at all. Even though it's not a part of balancing the recurring budget, we still need to walk through it and, take a look at it and see if there's anything you want to reduce from there.
well, there is, I think.
So.
And the other side of that is, we recommend that you earmark money towards specific projects so that it is tied up, it is allocated to something, it's assigned to something.
So, I mean, the areas that we haven't looked at all are the capital and the special salary requests. So we need to schedule a closed session to look at the handful of those. I'm not sure if you have a preference about when you'd like to do that. And we need to go through the capital. So, I mean, that could be our agenda.
What do we have to have, I apologize, I have to have a closed session to discuss what?
There are some specific requests, salary requests for specific employees that we can't talk about. And
Yeah, no, definitely, you
Yeah.
gotta do that.
So,
closed session.
Plan that for next week.
so we can do that for the next session and plan on going through the capital if you want.
Goes. And if we do
And that should,
capital,
then we'll have been through it all, and,
if we do capital, I'd like Dan Mattson to sit in on that one because the majority of the capital is his.
Yeah, sure.
yeah, absolutely. In the meantime, I'll look at the operating and see what we can see. I don't know if there's anything else you want us to look at.
What can we cut out of planning and zoning?
Everything. Director salary,
I'm gonna look at the
Just don't touch
operating.
your grants lady, don't touch her.
No, we need grants, yeah, don't do anything with the grants. But yeah, we could bring back. We could bring back information on the operating next week, plan to review the capital and have a closed session for the salary.
And this just in from the magic wizards who listen and then send us updates. This is from Jeannie Edwards.
Oh, okay.
I do have the history of the increases on the water and sewer rates. So for the past 1, 2, 3 years, we've done the 4%. There was 1 year we did, in 22, we did 0. The year before that, we did 4. The year before that, we did 6. The year before that, we did 4. And 2 years before that, we did 0. So it,
22.
22, 0.
Wonder why they picked that year.
I would venture to say, I
I'm being
mean,
sarcastic.
oh,
Well played.
Yes.
If she's emailing me, I wasn't looking at my phone.
so she did,
but
It didn't really work out too good for a couple of them.
It's a necessary evil that we have to pay for, and it's not paying for itself, so.
I mean, the other thing too, to think about it, I know they presented in the rate study, is do we want to increase the allocation fees? Do we want to put a percentage on that? That's not going to help balance the recurring budget issue,
No,
but.
but it's something we
but
gotta
it's something that
decide
we-
what we're gonna do, because
So-
if that goes forward, those the developments up there in Millington, that goes, once we,
I mean, do you want to tie it to the same increase as the rates every year? Do you want to pick a different number?
it's almost a discussion for itself. I think we need to give that some thought, because
Okay.
and this just in from another fairy who listens and realizes that we might need information. I do have the ambulance calls for the Betterton area, so I can forward this to you for your review if you want, or we can discuss it now.
I don't know that doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, I mean, we can discuss it, but, I mean, we've left them, you know.
All it takes is one bad incident.
yeah. No, we gotta
And
be
you don't
fair with the
you don't
whole
put a dollar
county.
figure on that, so that's my opinion.
No, I would agree.
And I agree as well.
Okay. So I'm not sure, I mean, if there's anything else in these categories you want to look at today, or if you've had enough. I know you had a long morning, so let me know when you've,
It's not for
And
today.
they accused me of talking too much. It wasn't me.
Well, you were in here longer than anybody
Well,
else.
yeah, but that's because I know more than anybody else. You asked for it.
Well, I'm glad you do. In this circumstance, I am wholeheartedly glad you do.
Let you have it all.
okay.
You got
well-
somebody to blame who don't know anything.
Okay, I don't know, I guess if we're gonna, I guess that's it for today. We don't need a motion, right? We just,
Just, we're done.
okay, well, we'll roll those changes through and,
You are going to get Dr. McComas to come in.
I was just
Early
gonna
on.
recap the 3 items for action that I'm taking away. Pat's working with Shamondia, but I'm gonna reach out to Dr. McComas and ask her if she can come in next week. I'm gonna make sure that Jim Miller is available for a closed session on the handful of personnel requests, specific personnel, and Dan Mattson to talk about capital.
And with the operating part of the budget, I'd had a discussion, I can't remember with who now, about
Maybe both of us.
operating costs at our detention center and how we might be able to
Oh,
look at some of that. Because of the lower inmate population and some things that we could do to trim that cost down.
Then we ought to have that discussion
Okay.
as well.
It's a lot of money.
absolutely.
Okay.
Good, are we done?
Are these mics on?
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
You know, when we get all done, you're gonna be relatively, I think, we're gonna be relatively surprised for this year. I don't know what's a year or two down the road, I'm worried about that, but we're gonna come out of this.
My grandfather always told me, Mr. Wall, they can't eat you, son, they can't eat you.
I might use that. I like that.
You all read the Clinton Mitchell article about seceding from the state of Maryland?
Yeah.
I'm sure you did.
I read it.
Yeah. I had a nice reply.
I read that as well.